What is the worst reason to have a baby? Why? Maybe not the worst, but having kids because you never questioned if you shouldn't. I always thought growing up that I would someday have kids. It just never even crossed my mind that I might not. I ended up in some not so great relationships because I prioritized a person's desire to have kids over finding someone I really connected with. Turns out, I've yet to arrive in a place in life where I'd feel ready emotionally and financially to raise a child. Had I kept focusing on having kids, I might have some by now, and I'm very confident I would be a terrible mother. My boss at work is in her 30s, works full-time, homeschools her only kid, cooks dinner every night, mows the lawns, does the shopping, laundry, etc. while her husband does nothing but complain. She's told me he literally sits around and watches TikTok all day. I once heard her yelling at him on the phone because he lied to his daughter who is homeschooled that he couldn't read and couldn't help her with schoolwork. He has no job. He does nothing, and my boss wants another baby because she thinks it'll be what motivates him to change. Anything other than a mutual, carefully discussed, planned and thought out decision to have a child is wrong. Wife and I had this discussion over the first 5 years of our relationship and decided it would not be a fit for our lifestyle or future life plans goals. And if we did change our minds, we felt adopting a child in need was the correct choice anyway. Once we made that decision, I got snipped so she could go off birth control as early as possible. 45 yo, married 10 years, together 20 years, so that your eldest can have sibling etc. Now it may sound like a great, selfless thing on the surface, but let's consider the psychological impacts on the younger child knowing this. Feeling like they owe their existence to their eldest. On the flip side, the eldest knowing this also gives them an impression of ownership. You exist so that I can have a friend. I've seen this all too often, and most recently as an alternative excuse to save a very obvious dying relationship. Frowning face. My ex had a best friend who was a total boss. She was a single mom because she tried to child trap her ex after 3 weeks of being together by stopping birth control and not telling him and spiking his condoms. She was also very addicted to cooking. When I knew her though, she started talking about how she wanted another kid and was going to get inseminated to get it done. Her reason for it was that she wanted some time off work, to try and trap a man. I'm an affair baby. My mom was a side chick for 10 years to my dad. She met my dad through her best friend, who was my dad's spouse and sibling's mother. Mom got sick of being the side piece and got pregnant on purpose. My dad continued seeing both of them for years after. My sibling's mother and my father broke up. My mom and him dated but ultimately broke up because my mother is effing unhinged to please someone else, like your partner or parents-in-laws. Especially when you don't want it 100. Because religion God told me to. To fix your relationship marriage. To live your unfulfilled dreams. To have someone to take care of you when you're old, they are not your labor slaves. To have a legacy, you don't have one. You are not famous, you are forgotten in 3 generations. To have extensions of yourself, someone to take care of you when you're old. The decision to have kids shouldn't be about you. You should embrace the possibility that they are not going to turn out exactly like you because they're their own, fully realized human. Also, bringing another person into this world for a whole lifetime just so that you're not lonely when you're old is fucked. Child support benefits, any money benefits. Or to keep someone stuck in a relationship with you. Downright toxic and cruel. Only have kids if you're prepared to love them unconditionally despite anything, unless you know if they end up being on the sex offender registry or anything, you're financially stable enough to give them what they need and you genuinely want kids. Child labor is legal in my country. My nanny purposely had 12 children so all of them work since the age of 6, and also they get married early if they are males, like at age of 11-12 because of dowry. He'll get paid by his in-laws' family as a wedding gift. Poverty stuff. I do think anyone who's in poverty should have one child rule from China applied to them. I used to work for a public housing complex long ago. A portion of the residents relied solely on public assistance for income. One family that I knew of had many children, and it turns out that they would have children in order to receive more money from the government. I felt bad for those kids because it was clear that they were not being raised properly. Have a child because others think so for whatever reason. These people will have nothing to do with this child later. And you will have to educate him and worry about him until the end of your days. At the same time, those who advised you to start it will then hardly help you. You need to think with your head. Your child won't thank you later. Irresponsibility. If you are just rolling the dice every time you have sex and risk getting pregnant without any planning in place, then that's wholly irresponsible to just assume it'll work out when it happens. This from my observation is why many people end up as single parents. That and doing it to trap someone into a relationship. My neighbor, explaining a strained relationship and how a baby will fix it. I think it'll really help fix our relationship. Yeah? Did it work last time? She's 4 now. The first year, we were so focused on her that we didn't fight. If we have another one, it'll buy me at least 1 more year. My dad had an incredibly fucked up and traumatizing childhood. Instead of dealing with his subsequent mental illness, as a person at his church told him to have lots of kids, it will heal your trauma. So he had 6 and we ended up homeless at certain points and traumatized ourselves. Idiot. There are parents that have children just so they can live their childhood dreams through their kids, women that wanted to be dancers, so they forced their daughters to take dance lessons. Men that wanted to be sports stars so they constantly train their children in sports. Unfortunately, I'm in Texas and a lot of women have babies for SNAP benefits or child support. I know someone broke up with guy, but to keep him she purposely got married. They had their first baby girl Ariana and she was pregnant with baby number 2. I'm Canadian and I'd how it works in the rest of the world, but you can receive child benefits here sometimes up to $500,600 a month per child. And I worked with a woman who was a crackhead and told me she has 4 children and her 3 last ones she had purely for the money. I know loads of people that have had kids because they feel it's the next step in a relationship and growing up. They are super miserable because of it. Only have kids if you are stable in every aspect including mentally and you are 10 million sure it's what you want. Something Jesus hates birth control something maga bad abortions bad save cheesy babies blah blah blah. If you don't want one, get out of places that think like this above. Being forced to have a kid if you don't want one is the worst reason to have one. We felt we needed some excitement. Just raising a child into a full human because you felt bored will only result in you feeling the most stressed out you've ever been. A baby is a lot to take care of. You shouldn't have one just because you think it would be fun to distract yourself from a traumatic experience robbed at gunpoint. A long time back, a coworker told me this after our conversation about what happened. She said it to distract me, then she said I was selfish for telling her that was a horrible idea. So you can understand the pain I went through and understand how horrible it is, Mom. And actively tries to push it. Like when are you having kids? You are having kids, right? Then get visibly angry when she says no she's not. She doesn't want them to carry on the family name. I said to my then boyfriend I can give you 100 reasons to not have children. Give me 1 reason to have children. He was silent for a few minutes, thinking. And then he said to carry on the family name. Idiot. This might be an unpopular opinion but it's a bad reason if one thinks of it as a milestone and just the next step in life without realizing what you're doing. People do not need to have kids, it's great if you do, but entirely not necessary. Had crazy neighbors, constantly screaming, fighting. He even tried to burn the house down with her and their 2 kids in it. When they got out of jail, he assured me things were gonna be better now, because they were going to have another baby. I'm about to have my first in 3 weeks. I mainly want my own baby to wrestle with the dog. Wife tells me it's the wrong reason. Also, I have a friend who primarily wants a kid because his office gives 6 months paternity leave lol. My mother had me and later my sister because she was lonely and in a loveless marriage. My dad almost left her because of me, and when my sister was born, he forced her to have it out of state and give it away for adoption. Because the firstborn was a girl, because that's just misogynist we must have a son BS. Also the firstborn being disabled, the little sibling isn't supposed to be a caretaker. They are their own person with their own life to feel complete. Most women I know have children because their friends are having children. It's a vicious biological competition of a society that taught women they are not complete if they do not become mothers to serve as motivation to quit drinking and doing drugs. Yes, people I know did this. No, it didn't work. That kid is being dealt a garbage hand in life. But fortunately the grandparents are involved and excellent. I had an old co-worker who legitimately said once I can't decide if I should get a pet or have another baby. This same co-worker was the one we all suspected was abusing Adderall, and had a history of heroin abuse to trap someone into getting married, giving you their pension retirement money. For the sake of being pregnant without wanting a kid excluding people who have another couple's kid because they themselves cannot. To ensure you're not lonely as an old person. Or to ensure someone is there to take care of you. If your children choose to help in those things it is great but you shouldn't put that obligation onto them to try to fix a broken relationship. You're bringing a whole new life into the world with someone you're not even really getting along with, and now the child has to be a bystander to a toxic environment. It's a gamble. You don't know what they will be subjected to. Also, people don't take into account genetic-related problems that could occur. It creates life just to make people's lives more interesting, because it's a social norm. So that someone will be there to take care of you when you are old. Because you're a woman and therefore you should automatically have them as it's your only purpose, speechless face. Because it's expected of you. Because your partner wants one. Because you think it will make you, or your partner or your relationship better. Babies should never come into the world with a job to fill the gap of something missing or amiss in your life: relationship, success, sibling rivalry, low self-esteem, because other people do it, expected by parents, friends, society etc. out of obligation to catch up to the rest of your siblings, or because you feel like your parents won't love your children as much they love your siblings' children if you wait too long. I will go with to save a relationship and also to think having a baby will give you something that's yours. Obviously the baby is yours, but it's not a plaything. It's a living thing. To be responsible for their disabled sibling in the future. Yes, I had a friend tell me she wanted another child so that her disabled son would have someone when if she passed away. This is based on my son's bio parents while the other kids got taken away. Maybe we can keep this one last count they had 8 taken away from them and 1 died due to neglect. Because it's what's expected of you once you get married that isn't fair to you or your spouse if neither of you wants a child. And it most certainly isn't fair to the baby, because you were told you couldn't have kids, so when you miraculously become pregnant you have to keep it no matter who the father is or what your relationship with him is.